Welcome to the part 5th of the video titled Year 2026 United States versus China. There is a very good saying in the world of fixed income. As we are a hedge fund, we understand the world of fixed income. So, there is a very good saying in the world of fixed income, which is if as a country you offer a good spread, then investors are always interested. Guys, there are three kind of investors we have in the world. Number one are pure risk-free investors. Now, as we speak in 2022, there is hardly anything known as risk-free. Now, that's a separate thing that people still treating many things as risk-free, but I do not. There is hardly. Rather, when it comes to sovereign debt, it is also not risk-free. Another investor is the moderate investor. So their first priority is the risk-free, but they knew that everything is not risk-free. So they are ready to take the chances. And they knew that the chances which they are taking sometimes work, sometimes they do not work. They knew this very clearly. So in 2008 financial crisis, when subprime mortgages collapsed, that too to the tune of billions of dollars, then these are the investors who lost it, not heavily, but they lost it. The third kind of investors are junk investors. They chase interest. They believe that if I am investing in an asset class which is giving me a return of 6% today, when the global interest rate is near about 2%, and if I hold this for 5 years, example, I get 30% interest. So they are those investors who chase the interest. They hardly bother about the principal. Technically speaking, they are risky investors. They completely understand that there is a big threat to their principal and they play with it. Many times they lose also. Like in 2008, they invested heavily in subprime mortgages and they lost it. In case of India, people invested in Paytm, Zomato, Policy Bazaar, Nikia, and many loss-making companies. They lost it heavily. Now China is offering a yield on the government securities, and China is also a AAA rated country. So China is offering a yield on a government security near about 2.3%. Near about and growing. But United States 10-year yield is near about 1.8%. Now, it's a clear indication that the spread between United States and China is 1.5%, which for a foreign institutional investor, for a big hedge fund, for a big pension fund, for a big depository institution, for a custody business person, for an ETF, exchange traded fund, this spread is huge. 1.5%. Huge. And even if for a while I assume Federal Reserve will hike the rate by 25 bips in their upcoming March meeting, the yield will go only by 25 bips maximum, which means it will touch near about 2%, we can say. But China was already 2.3%. Still, there is a big scope. To any hedge fund. But the matter of fact is, I haven't seen a single business channel. I haven't seen a single business channel who raised this point that the spread between China and US, technically speaking, both AAA rated countries, is growing. Now, let's come to the very interesting point of this spread. China Central Bank, which is People Bank of China, who is ignored in their balance sheet here by Fortune India, they are very clear that they won't be hiking rates until there is a proper stability in the system. They are very clear. And it is not that they are clear today. They are clear since many months. So they make one thing very clear to the investors that, guys, do not talk the rate hike from us. We are not going to be hiking the rate because our first priority is the stability of our financial system. Door is closed. European Central Bank also almost on the same track, you can say. Almost on the same track, and they also made it very clear that they also not going to be hiking the rate. So the two leading central banks among five, which is People Bank of China, Bank of England, they made it clear. Now when it comes to Bank of Japan, they also made it clear indirectly that they cannot hike the rate. And Bank of Japan having a technical reason behind that. And that is their debt. Debt to GDP ratio. I repeat, debt to GDP ratio of Japan is 250%, which means if they are holding a debt of holding a GDP of $1, the debt is $2.5 and growing. So Japan more or less on the verge of collapse, that I can say, because maintaining or sustaining 250% or 2.5 times of debt to GDP ratio is completely out of control. Probably soon we'll have 3%, 300% or 3 times. Now if US will hike the rate by 25 bips, assuming which they are talking, this would have a huge balance sheet impact on their debt, which technically known as refinancing cost. So today, your $31 trillion worth of debt, I repeat, your $31 trillion worth of debt, the refinancing cost would grow by 25 bips, which is very, very near to 600 billion US dollars. Who would be paying this cost? You don't have the money. You are printing the money. And now you need to pay additional $600 billion minimum. And God forbid, if US will hike the rate by 50 bips, it would have a substantial impact on the US balance sheet. Rather, too substantial on the US balance sheet, which I don't think any textbook can even explain. Which is not the case with China now, because they made one thing very clear: they are not going to be hiking the rates, whatever the situation might be, because their concern is the stability. And that is very important, I think so. So, who is better? Now, that's a bigger point. Whether this is GDP, whether this is central bank, whether this is politically exposed people, whether this is a huge amount of debt, which is near about 31 trillion and growing, whether this is a rate or whether this is a projected GDP, a gross domestic product of near about 20 trillion for China by 2026, who is better? That's very important point. In the part 6 and the last, we would be covering Chinese yuan. This is Rahul Magan from Treasury Consulting Group.